Hey friends, this is the Meme Team podcast, where we talk about the logic behind virality, because marketing isn't just logic, it's culture, and our podcast decodes both. So I've been seeing, Sonia, a lot of people are talking about Taylor Swift this week.
Yeah, so let's talk about the original Easter egg, artist here. So fans have sussed out that she's probably the next guest on Travis Kelce's New Heights podcast by figuring out all the clues that were given on the promotional image that came out. Some of the clues are sparkle, like orange that's in the background when it's usually yellow for other guests. Her fan account tweeted out similar imagery with like the orange glitter as well, talking about the new era. But most recently, it seems as if the fans have figured out what image they used for the thumbnail. This is one of like the biggest examples of like Swifties getting their shit together and like figuring out what all the clues are. So yeah, I guess we're all expected to see her on the 13th.
Oh God.
I know, but this is what her fans do. So,
Yeah.
Props to them for figuring that out.
Yeah, we'll see, right? Like, I think when this episode comes out, maybe the New Heights episode will have just dropped or it's about to. So I guess we'll see. And I think people also think that Taylor Swift might mention a new album or drop some new music. So we'll see.
There you go. Hopefully it gives podcasts more credence, because this is where Taylor Swift is announcing her next album is on a podcast. So there you go. Podcast hosts unite.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
Yeah, for sure. And then the other little thing I wanted to, shout out was that the All American Rejects were playing at Sheetz, a convenience store parking lot. So that was really fun. That went viral last week. So they're continuing on their homegrown tour, which is pretty cool. So props to them.
Cool. Did they sell tickets for that?
No, they just, I think, invited folks out. So that's pretty cool.
That is cool. I like that they are selling actual tickets to shows, but it's cool that they are, they're just playing for free too and surprising people.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about it, right? Where experiences are now one of those things that like you as a human, is going to get to experience. So the fact that they're, really going in on that and like using that as a marketing tactic to grow their audience and like give their audience special access is, going to become more and more popular, I think.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how people are looking for kind of more real experiences that go beyond what you can just experience digitally. Well, we'll come back to this later.
Yeah, for sure. The last thing I'll say is that it looks like a lot of young people. So, we also saw that chart that came out last week that they're the most isolated, that they're not as, making friends as much, that they're online a lot. So if this is a way that like, we get people together a little bit more to experience things, like I'm all for it. Like go out, experience the world, listen to rock bands.
Yeah, I hope we'll see more of this. Yeah. All right, so let's get this show going. So last week, OpenAI announced ChatGPT 5.
Yeah, to a lot of fanfare and a huge wah-wah.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about AI viral stunts and how a lot of the companies are overhyping and then under-delivering, and you're starting to see a lot more backlash from fans and obviously, haters, but what's changing is that fans now are jumping on this and just being like, why are you overhyping things if you're not actually gonna like, deliver anything? So, I mean, I think we all saw the Sam Altman tweet where it was like the picture of the Death Star. Wow, he's like hyping it as like this big, huge thing. It's also a little questionable because, like, are you saying you're the Death Star? Or are you saying you're,
Yeah, like, which one are you?
Yeah, right. He then responded and said, no, we're the rebels. And then
like,
people were
you are?
I don't think this is the right image.
I don't think you are.
Yeah. So it was really funny that, like, he went that way. But the bigger thing here is that most of the commentary that I saw was just that it wasn't actually changing much. It got rid of a few things, but it didn't fix the long-standing issues like hallucinations, basic reasoning. Like it just ended up being a tiny upgrade,
So I think the other big thing with GPT-5 was the way that Sam Altman had said it was going to be more accessible to more people
Hmm.
because it's free to everyone, though with capped limits. And yeah, I mean, I think it is more accurate than previous ones, but with this rollout too, they also deprecated previous models or kind of folded it into five, right? So you don't have to choose which model to use.
Hmm.
But a lot of people really liked four, so that
Yeah, I
was
mean, we're
also
seeing the
upsetting.
backlash of that,
Yeah,
right? Where it's like
yeah.
there was the 3,000 people that petitioned for it to go back. I mean, I
Mhm.
saw loads of screenshots from like Reddit users complaining that they wanted the old version back because they felt that they had lost a friend, that they, had lost the love of their life, that they had lost, somebody that they were seeing like as a parent figure, which brings up a whole other like issue about, whether that's what we want as a society, is for people to rely on AI so much that it's like their only friend, or the only people, I mean, it's not a person, right? But the only thing that they talk to and like share their deepest, darkest feelings with. And then I saw that, some altmen also kind of like tweeted about that, the situation of like why they felt that they should move towards a model that doesn't respond as like gratiatingly or as amenable as the previous versions. And then people kind of were calling it out like, oh, sounds like you're hating your users, So I just think like overall it ended up not being a really good rollout for them. The other thing I wanted to call out was that GPT-5 has been like hyped for like 2.5 years as being like this huge change that was going to come out and just like wow everybody. And it just ended up not doing that. I also want to bring up the example of Cluely, which this past week, rolled out a few more marketing campaigns.
So wait, let's refresh people's memories. Cluely is basically the cheating app that
Yes, sorry.
secured a lot of funding a while back.
Yeah, so they secured, $15 million from Andreessen Horowitz, for their cheating software, which has, since been, changed into more like enterprise sales software. They had gotten all this hype, and then they actually like rolled it out. They had like a launch tweet. Their CEO, Roy Lee, tweeted it out. And I, was keeping tabs on it because I was like, oh, let's see how this goes. And yeah, I mean, the main thing that you see from like the comments are like, oh, wow, like this isn't actually anything like new. It's like transcription services, which, we already have. Like it kind of gives you basic like information for like, sales call, which is like what they were touting as like this big thing. So I think it was just another one of those things that people were just like, wow, like you've been out here like hyping your product and yourself as a CEO, going on like TBPN, being on every podcast. And then like the actual product comes out and there's just like, nothing there. So I think, they kind of went back, licked their wounds a little bit, and are now trying to like roll out again another like launch by doing these like viral stunts, including the Times Square billboard, like the merch. There was another they bought a like $1 million car, and people are like, what does this have to do with like the product, and is anybody using the product, right? On the one hand, you can say that the main thing that they're looking for here is to just get attention, right? Get eyeballs so that people click over to their website and start using it. And their CEO has been adamant that yes, people are actually using this, like we just don't say who it is. And Amanda and I talked about that previously, where it's like, what companies are going to want to admit that they're using cheating software. But one tweet that someone put out this past week, she was talking about doing a hiring interview, and she was like, it was really sad because we could tell, me and another one of the hiring people could tell that they were using AI to like answer all the questions, because they, would repeat the question back to us, and we could tell that they were reading off of something. So it was like,
Was this
it
a
wasn't a
video call?
natural thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So she's like, it was like really weird and awkward because like, we could tell, but we didn't know how to like discuss it, like with them. But I don't think that they'll be moving forward. So
Oh my
that's something else to
gosh.
kind of keep an eye out
Sorry,
for, right?
I could be such an uncomfortable and uncomfortably direct person. I probably would have
Yeah.
just asked them real time. I
Yeah.
would have been like, "Are you using
Yeah.
an
The cheating
AI
software?
tool? Like,
Yeah,
hey, I
yeah, yeah, yeah.
understand like interviews are hard, but are you doing
Yeah.
this? Like, I
Yeah.
really need you to just answer authentically,
Yeah,
please."
yeah, yeah. Oh, she called out that they were answering in the star format. That's like you're describing a situation, the tasks you were assigned, the actions you took, and the results you achieved. So she was like, they're basically just reading all this, and like we could tell. So it was just like super awkward. Um,
Oh
and it was
gosh,
just
I
like,
just
oh,
want to say that That does sound really helpful as a framework to review, but maybe like you as an individual can learn the framework and try to practice it. I'm all for finding new frameworks and formats, but
Yeah.
the secondhand
Yeah.
embarrassment I feel for this person.
Right? And so that was another thing that like made me, think about just the way that Cluely is selling their software. They're saying like, oh, it's working on the background, it's doing all this stuff. But we don't really talk about the human side of things where it's like the human then has to go and pretend like they know all this stuff. And most people aren't the best actors, right? Like they just can't flow as well as you would like. So you're going to have a lot of situations like this where you have, someone that's asking you genuine questions that they want to know the answer to. And then you're trying to like robot back AI answers to them and you sound awkward and weird. And I can't see that being an effective way of like getting hired at companies. So just something to think about there.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so some things to call out here are just like the dangers of overpromising. We talk a lot about that here where, you don't want the expectations of your users to be so outsized that when you finally roll out the product, it's not what they wanted because you're going to upset them even more. And a lot of people are unwilling to trust you after that. So you're going to have to work even harder to bring them back again, someday. So really trying to like discuss like how you're, talking about your product, how you're messaging your consumer. All those things should be talked about beforehand and not posting, a Death Star tweet out there that gets people hyped about like, what this could mean.
Yeah, I'll add as a SaaS or software marketer, what the thing that really grabs me the most is the fact that they deprecated the previous models without giving you an option to go back to it.
Yeah.
'Cause previously you would be able to go back to previous models and you could choose your models depending on the task that you were doing. And obviously I understand that the whole point of GPT-5 was to streamline everything. What users were seeing was that queries were taking a lot longer, and it's probably because it's going through the most reasoning that it can as a default, which isn't great because sometimes that's not what you want, just depending on what query it is that you've run. And so, anyway, my point is more so just as a software marketer, how where I worked at SparkToro, an audience research startup where we help people do research on their audience. And anytime we have a new change, or even when we rolled out the newest version of our tool last year, or this past year, we've maintained access to the previous version, but messaging very clearly, that we were going to be deprecating the previous version, at X time. Until then, this is the new SparkToro, just really trying to educate people on the new platform and kind of trying to meet them where they already are by saying, yeah, you can access the previous one. Here are the limitations that you'll run into. Here's where you may or may not want to use it. And please understand that this is going to be deprecated on, XY date.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. But it also makes me think that like the OpenAI folks were, had drank the Kool-Aid so much that they're like, everyone's going to want the better version. Just get rid of the other one and just give, people GPT-5 because it's so much better and it does all this and all these improvements. But because it was incremental changes, most people wouldn't notice that, and all they noticed was like the voice talking back to them.
Right. It became a little bit more corporate-y or just more, in a sense, like a bit colder. Even if the quality of the average answer was higher quality, even if it was a little bit better or more concise, I think, people, what you were saying earlier, people were like, I feel like I lost my friend, I lost my partner, because because the experience for the user it's like you're talking to a different person.
Yeah. No, and that makes sense, right? I think part of it is like, I think it goes back to we're wanting that human element, right? And so they made, GPT-4 a bit more human, and this time they're trying to make it more like an AI. And so people reacted like, what? No, So it's really interesting, right? Because it's like, I'm not sure how they kind of go back from that, because
Yeah.
if, they are doing it, I mean, when Sam Altman said, like, we want to do this for like the better of society so that people aren't getting attached, right? And we're seeing a lot of stories come out about like AI psychosis, coming out.
Right.
And
And part of what Sam Altman said in one of his statements was like, if a user seems mentally unstable in some way or sensitive to something, we don't want their chat GPT to feed into that.
yeah,
That wasn't his exact quote, but it was along those
right.
lines of like, we
Hmm.
don't want that. We don't want the agent, or so to speak, to reinforce that behavior.
Hmm.
And so I do think it's interesting that OpenAI was basically like, let's try to go in a version of what
Hmm.
we think is more ethical, and people were
Right.
like, no,
Yeah.
give me my best friend, give me my partner back, or whatever
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was.
yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. But yeah, just thinking about the larger societal implications of what that means, right? When it's like, not only are people assuming that the AI is like their friend, but though that AI is known to be more agreeable and like just like on your side a little bit more. There's less pushback. There's less, going back and forth as like not even a conversation, but like to getting them to rethink what is actually happening, and not letting them devolve into like, yes, sycophantic like fans that are supporting everything and anything that you do, like I've seen some say, that popped up saying like, well, you ended up cheating on your wife because she wasn't there when like, so like she should be understanding. And it's like, whoa, there's like human dynamics that like just don't translate into how actual humans would, respond to you. Um, yeah. So we'll see where that goes. They did end up allowing people to revert back to previous versions if they wanted. But at some point, I assume they're going to want to figure out how to move everybody forward the other way. Okay, and then one other thing I wanted to bring up is just the fatigue marketing that's happening when you kind of overhype your product. A lot of the times we're seeing companies really come out and like, launch these like super sleek, launch videos about like what their product is. And then when it comes to like the actual product, it's not where they say it's going to be at, right? So I think it's creating this mentality within customers that like they just trust all companies, including like most AI companies, less overall. So it's like raising the bar for everybody else because there's a few companies out there that are, overhyping their own product. So you need to be aware of that for your own company, like in how you're marketing yourself to your customers, so that you don't get caught up in that and have people expect more from you than is actually what your product does. And I think companies need to realize that like, your product, like the features that you already have, the things, that you're building are enough to be able to bring in consumers. You just have to be able to market them in a way that is interesting. And a lot of companies are failing to do that. So instead, they kind of like pitch the future of like where the product is going to be, not realizing that people, don't want to have to discern between where the product is going to be, 3 months, 6 months, a year out. They just want the product to function now the way that you're saying it's going to function. So stick to that. And then if you want to talk about more of like, the product roadmap and where you're going, like be clear that that's what you're doing. Like this is where we're like heading, so that you don't mix up, what your consumer is thinking about you.
All right, should we get into our next topic?
Yeah, let's go on.
Okay, so something that keeps coming up in the headlines in kind of refreshed ways is the fact that we are all losing website traffic, and even the most popular websites are, to AI-driven changes in Google search. So IAC, which is the owner of some of the most popular websites like All Recipes, Liquor.com, People, Martha Stewart Living, and just many, many more. IAC has said the portion of our traffic that comes from Google search has declined from 52% to 28%. Groupon and even SEO darling NerdWallet have all talked about the changing behavior of Google search, and they're all having declining traffic. And this is something that like we've seen at SparkToro, Ahrefs, SEMrush. We've all done some research around this, around like the decline of referral traffic. And a couple months ago, Ahrefs said the average website's traffic is down around 20%. And even last week, when we were talking about how there's more and more bot traffic now, bots are like half the internet. So part of it is like, overall, websites are losing referral traffic from Google, but also in general, there's more and more bot traffic. And I believe it was SEMrush that said that they've estimated by 2028, bot traffic will exceed human beings traffic, right? So we have this like referral traffic problem and this bot problem. And where do we go from here, right? We need to think more than ever about what people are looking for online, or maybe even just what people are looking for in general, right? And I believe what people are looking for is experiences. That's why
Hmm.
Google and Reddit have that partnership, right? Where oftentimes when you're looking for an opinion or a discussion, or just when you're looking for something, right? Now, oftentimes we see that a Reddit result will come up at the top.
I think they're looking for the human, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that chart that just came out citing
Oh,
the
yeah.
top 10 sources of where AI summaries come from. And it's like Reddit, Wikipedia, YouTube, Google, Yelp, Facebook, Amazon, TripAdvisor, Mapbox, and OpenStreetMap. And I
Yeah.
think what all of those have in common is they're creating human content. Like this is people talking about their own personal experiences, people asking other people and then getting answers to that. You know, it's where most of us are uploading details of our lives, what we like, what we don't like.
Yeah.
And
And why we don't like them or why we do like them. I mean, these are
yeah.
all versions of marketplaces,
Hmm.
versions of review sites,
Hmm.
right? So people are trying to understand experiences.
Hmm.
And the other thing is, of the clicks that Google is sending, about a quarter of them go to a Google owned entity. So something like YouTube, where again, people are probably looking for some kind of experience. And so now marketers have to think more and more about how they can create or deliver on these types of experiences. And funny enough, like one other example that a couple of people have sent to me, including you, Sonia, was this article about InStyle's The Intern series. There's a quote there where the person from InStyle is talking about their strategy for The Intern, and it's a mockumentary style series where it's a like 1.5 to 2 minute video series on TikTok and Instagram. And if you search for it on Google, you'll find it on InStyle's website as standalone videos. So it's also just there on their website, and it's completely just a story, a narrative driven channel. It has nothing to do really with InStyle. It's
Hmm.
about interns who work at InStyle, but there's nothing that actually points people to go to the InStyle website. All of the content is meant to be consumed on the social platform. It is created specifically for that platform, and InStyle is tracking, all the usual engagement metrics, but they're not tracking, at least anyway that they're saying publicly. They're not
Hmm.
tracking the ROI of like, oh, is this converting new magazine subscriptions, right? I mean,
Is it
maybe
a
somewhere
separate channel?
it's a separate channel, I believe.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here is where I take time to plug my new thing. So one of the things that I started realizing as we're talking about, the podcast and in working with clients in my fractional CMO work is that this is a problem now, right? A lot of companies have been creating their, content, or they have like a blog content, and they've noticed that there's just no traffic coming to it, right? I've been kind of working working to come up with a way to counteract that, right? And so that's where I came up with this, content creation service called Yapping as a Service, where it's like we're taking the founder and like their experience and like the things that they know about the industry, the trends, what's happening in their world, and using that to create content that doesn't really exist right now. And I found that like most founders have a lot of thoughts about like what's happening. They just aren't getting it out there. And so we've been talking about this, on the podcast, and I'm starting to think about like, when I work with my clients, like, and I like ask them like questions about like what they're thinking about and the industry that they're in, they all have very good like answers for like where they see the future going and like what they want to see change, what they know needs to change. And then nobody's writing about this. So I keep seeing this like, hole that's like created. by all these like industries, and especially as we're losing, like magazines that like talk about this stuff, the tech journals only want to talk about like the hottest new startups, that like raised $15 million from Andreessen Horowitz, wink wink. So it's like really hard for them to get attention, and so now instead of creating those blogs on their website, I'm suggesting that they create it on Substack, on LinkedIn, where like their target audience already is, and is looking for that sort of content. So that's why I'm telling them, it's like you have to focus on like your case studies, which like nobody else can talk about, right? Because you're the one that's like talking to your consumer. What are they saying about like the problems that they're facing? Like, how do you turn those into ideas for like the type of content that other people in that situation also have? How are you solving these problems? What sort of regulations or regulatory changes are you seeing coming up? Most industries are having huge changes right now because of the Trump administration, right? Whether that's tariffs, whether that's like legal hurdles, whether that's, price changes that they're having to do. All these things are fodder for content that you can be using to create and get like your startup out there. And especially you as a founder. I mean, most of us have heard, Lulu Chang Meservey talk about going direct. This is what that means, right? It's like talking about like what you see in your industry that is like you can put you at the forefront of like what is going on and like who's talking about it. And if nobody's talking about it, this is like your opportunity to talk about it, right? And that's going to be a way to counteract all this like lack of traffic that most people are getting. And I really see this as being like the way that the people that want to grow and like grow an audience, or companies that want to bring in more leads are going to be bringing in those leads.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're seeing with the decline of web traffic, the decline of Google search, is Google search or organic traffic is no longer the most viable growth strategy. Like if you're starting today, or just in general, you can't just count on Google sending you the search traffic. You have to figure out where your audience is, what they're doing, where they're already paying attention, and then figure out how to position yourself there, like through this thought leadership content, for instance, and try to catch them where they already are.
Yeah, agreed. I think there's just such an opportunity right now, especially for the companies that like take it seriously. And a lot of us marketers, right? You're always looking for a new way to bring in more leads. This is kind of like the reality of what we're facing, right? Where it's just like, even within Google, right? Where it's like when people are searching for something, like it's still the main thing that they do is bring up the, AI summary. So if you're not getting, slipped into that, you're probably not going to be, coming up. Like right now, I was looking something up, and then I went back because in my mind, the furthest button on the left is like the all, but it's now the AI summary. So I went into that. I'm like, why is it taking so long? And it's like, oh, it's because the AI summary is like working to get me like all this information. And I had to click over to the all just to, give me all the search results, right? So they're already pushing users to be using their, AI summary. And if you're not getting ahead of that, it's going to be really hard for you to, come up with a strategy later.
Yeah, exactly. All right, should we move on to our next topic?
Yeah. So we're starting to see that DVDs, VHS, Blu-rays are making a comeback, particularly because streaming services keep nuking content. I saw recently that Westworld is no longer available to be seen on HBO, which is wild. It was like a huge show that people would watch like every Sunday, and it's no longer available. A couple of cartoons have been taken off of WB, a Cartoon Network. We've lost all these shows and won't be able to like see them again unless they come out in like DVD. Or we're seeing one of the people that I follow closely, like he's been growing his like VHS library for like a while, which is pretty cool. So I always like seeing like the movies that like, he's getting. We're also seeing that like the Criterion Closet has become a huge thing. I always see that, Stars, it's like, part of the movie promotional tours that they have, going on. They'll go, into the Criterion Closet and choose like the 5 movies that like, have changed their lives, or that like, made them think about the movie that they're currently in. Something that's very related to like, what they're talking about. And so now you have fans lining up to get the physical discs. They line up for like starting at like 3:30 in the morning, which is kind of crazy. But it keeps, going back to this idea that people want to have these experiences. And if you're like a movie buff, going to this, to the Criterion Closet and getting to hang out with other people that are super into movies is like one of those experiences that like you just can't like buy anymore. Barnes & Noble is now partnering with Criterion Closet in order to start selling more DVDs, because they're seeing that like those sales are going up. Barnes & Noble, obviously, they already have books. Barnes & Noble also sells like records that they've seen, like, people are kind of keeping as collector's items. So there's this whole rise in like physical products that people are buying. One of the other ones that like we've seen are like at movie theaters, the popcorn buckets are becoming like a thing, which is like really cool. And it's all these things that like people want to buy in order to have like to have a physical product. I think this taps into a lot of nostalgia marketing again, like remembering Blockbuster when you used to go in and like see the physical DVDs. I'm seeing a lot more of like people like with the idea that like it was easier to choose a movie when you had like a limited number of videos that you could like watch, versus now when it's like you have so many different options, and every streaming platform has a completely different like set of movies. And then even some movies can't even be found anymore. You have to like rent them or buy them. At least that's still an option. Another thing that I'm noticing here is the whole idea of scarcity, which is what we talked about last week. I think people are starting to realize that they actually want to own the physical products again, especially of their favorite things. So that's pretty cool that we're seeing that. I'm also seeing that there's a rise in like physical literature, like zines, which are self-published, small batched, independent publications, basically. I've seen a few like in the tech world that are like coming out, which are pretty cool. It's essentially like special versions of the content that they have digitally.
Oh,
And
that's
then
fun.
yeah.
I feel like zines were like the original Substack.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
were more
exactly.
popular in, I believe, like the mid 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
they were
yes.
gone, obviously. But
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. So now they're coming back because people are like, well, I want to be able to read it like as a physical copy. So I think that's really cool. We're also seeing new versions of books coming out, like the really like beautiful, like elaborate ones, which I've talked about before. But we see the companies and like the publishers coming out with new versions so that you get new audiences and you have like collectible items, basically. So I think that's kind of the through line that I'm seeing here, that it's becoming more of a like collecting a collectible. People are wanting to create collections of things that they love. So think about how you can, come out with stuff like that. Like if you are having experiences, like at trade conferences or, all events that like people are going to attend, like how can you create special items that like, bring people together? Another way to think about it is like, is there specific merch that you as like a company can like, have for like, your employees or, early supporters, where it's a special like one-off item that like makes people want to keep it. I found like with companies, a lot of the time they just don't really think about swag as a thing that like matters. It's just like, oh, just buy, like whatever. And it's like, maybe if you're a little bit more thoughtful about what you're buying and like, putting your name on, you'll be excited to like share it. And then you'll get other traffic because, people, post about it online or something.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for thinking about these opportunities to drive interesting experiences. What else am I thinking about?
I think that's like the theme for today's
It's like
podcast is
experiences, right?
experiences.
Thinking about experiences, scarcity,
Mhm.
tapping into people's identities and like how they share their values or how they express who they are.
Mhm.
I think a lot of that, I feel like we're seeing a lot of that, especially with this return to analog stuff. I mean, this has me thinking about two kind of related things. One,
Mm.
there is I'll just say that for K-pop Demon Hunters, right? It's Juggernaut on Netflix. They're doing a couple of limited screenings at Regal theaters where
Oh, I
they're
love that.
meant to be sing-alongs. I think so far
Yeah.
there are only 2 dates, but they're meant to be sing-alongs.
Yeah.
I assume people are going to dress up, because why wouldn't you?
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
And like that's a super interesting model. Like that's kind of a
Yeah.
version of physical,
Mhm.
right? Going to a movie theater. But now that there's this established fandom, this fan base, like now there's every reason to go to a theater, right? Because
Yeah.
you want to experience that music live or live in some way. And
Mhm.
because it's an animated fictional band, you can't exactly buy tickets to a show, but this is the ticket to that show,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. So that's kind of
Um,
fun. The
yeah, yeah,
other
yeah.
thing, yeah.
I
Did
wonder
you?
if it's just yeah, sorry. Just
Yeah.
you mentioned that it's just 2 movie theaters. Like that seems like super low, and I assume it's just going to be what, LA and New York?
Probably it's at Regal Theaters. I think they just have
Yeah.
2 dates, but
Yeah, yeah.
I
But
hope
maybe from
more.
that it'll grow to something else. Because that
I
was
hope
one thing I
so.
wanted to bring up last time was that just questioning why it was just a Netflix like streaming and it wasn't out in the movie theaters, probably because it was animated and they didn't think people would come out for it. But certainly now that they've have they know that the fan base is there. I do wonder what they're going to do for the sequel, like whether that'll have a theatrical run so that people will come out.
Yeah, they have to. I mean, it'll
Yeah.
be a couple of years probably, but they have to.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, here's hoping. I think that's
Yeah.
one of those things where one of the things I've seen too is that you have like the actors and like the directors showing up to screenings here in LA. I mean, they're super close by. It totally makes sense. But I'm seeing the traffic that's, being generated by that because, people are recording it and showing that, they're there, they're being interviewed, they're showing up like unannounced. So that's pretty cool
Yeah.
way to get people to experience the movie in a different way that also
Yeah.
like adds on to like clearly that the people that are showing up at like on Friday or Thursday at midnight are like the hardcore fans that like really want to be there. So if you really want to like treat your biggest fans, like there's no like this is super easy like win, I think.
Yeah. Wait, that reminds me. Did you see that when the Minecraft movie was out, Jack Black went to a couple of screenings
Hmm.
and not screenings, but a couple of the showings
Right, right,
where
right.
there's a part when Chicken Jockey comes out
Yeah.
that I think theater goers were like getting rowdy and throwing their popcorn and
Oh
stuff.
my God.
And so like theaters started issuing a warning to people like, hey, like during that scene, like don't do that. And
Oh.
then Jack Black showed up to do one of those announcements.
Did he show up and throw popcorn or like they were
No,
saying
no,
don't
to
throw the
say like, hey,
popcorn?
don't do that. Like
Oh, got it, got it, got it.
to warn people to not do that.
Oh, that's so funny. I thought they were saying it like, don't do it because Jack Black is going to be here. And like, you
Oh
don't
no,
want to
no,
be
no!
throwing
Just that
popcorn
they're
at
just saying
him.
like, please don't do this. Like, don't get too
Yeah.
crazy.
Oh, I love that. That's really cool because it's like,
Yeah,
it shows that they're like paying attention, to like what's happening for like their movies. So that's really cool.
yeah.
Anyway,
And
your second
I want
thing.
to say one quirky thing.
Yeah.
I went on a trip with some girlfriends a few months back, and one of our friends was like kind of the designated driver for the most part, or one of them. She still burns CDs. So the music she was playing in the
Wow.
car were from her CDs, and I saw her change one of the CDs out, and I was like, "Is that a CD player? Wait, is that a CD? Did you make a mixtape?"
Oh my
And
God.
she was like, "Yeah, I I still burn my CDs." And I'm like, "You still have a CD burner? That's
Wow.
amazing." And I just had so many questions. I was like, "Why?"
Yeah.
My first
What'd she
question.
say?
She was just like, I don't know. She's like, "I don't like the idea of having to depend on Spotify to stream my music or anything like that." She's like, "I like that I can just put in my CD. I know what I'm gonna get, and it's not gonna skip or bug out. Like I just have my music there."
Interesting.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was like,
It also means
respect.
she has complete control over the music.
Right. Yeah, that's the other thing. I'm like, she's probably buying all this music.
Yeah,
I
that's
think she
wild.
is.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's one thing I was like posting about recently because I got rid of my like we had the original like Disney like the big white like VHSs and I got rid of them because like oh everything's going online and then now they're coming back and I'm like oh could have gotten a pretty penny for those.
Bummer.
No, but I mean I think it's interesting that it's happening. It does suck that like we're losing so much art, because streamers are taking it down. They're like, well, they don't want to pay for it, or it's not worth keeping on, or whatever. But I think it's also allowing people to kind of come together in a way that they hadn't before because they're realizing that something might not last forever. And again, having that scarcity, mentality helps people to kind of coalesce around it a little bit more and like value it a little bit more, you know? So it's like I see the movie going experience, you know, potentially changing as people become more open to like maybe meeting more people and like forming a community because they're discovering, you know, these things. Like imagine, you know, the folks going to the K-pop Demon Hunters, like, you know, showing when that happens. It's like, hey, I know I'm going to like all these people because they love this thing that I love as much as I do. So maybe it also helps to create, you know, and like bonds people a little bit more because of these
Yeah,
experiences.
maybe. Now,
We'll see
speaking of
though.
bonding over, shared experiences, Instagram has rolled out some new updates. One of these updates are reposts. So Instagram now lets you reshare public reels and grid posts, just like a retweet or a TikTok share. You can also share this with optional commentary and automatic credit to the original creator. They also live in a brand new reposts tab on your profile, and they show up in your followers' feeds. The other thing they announced was an Instagram map. So this is a location sharing tool inside DMs that lets you share your real-time location with select friends or close groups. It's opt-in only with controls and parental supervision. And then finally, they also have expanded friends tabs in Reels. So you can see what your friends have liked, commented on, reposted, or created, and you can start conversations right from there and customize what appears. I was seeing some of the backlash to Instagram Maps. I don't know if you saw that, but I think there was some misunderstanding over how it really worked because I think the misunderstanding came from the fact that you had to explicitly opt out. And so I think there were people who thought that that meant that they were opted in.
Mm.
I think I don't think they were. I think that's a misunderstanding. So your location isn't being shown to everyone. It's you have to opt in for that. And
Wait, so you have to opt in or opt out? What happens if you do neither?
I think you're opted out, but it's
Oh,
not
okay.
clear.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I guess that should be something that they make clear.
Yeah, or like it's clear in the sense that you can see like where you are on the map, and I think you can see that it's like not sharing with anyone or something kind of like that.
Hmm.
But it also doesn't explicitly say you are opted out of this thing. It's like the toggle for opting out is not selected. So I mean, I went in and opted out because I don't have a need for that feature. That's not really my thing.
You're like, I
Yeah.
don't want people to know where I am.
Yeah, or I mean, because I'm already using Find My Friends for the people whose location I do want to share my location with, you know?
Yeah. Okay. So when I first heard, I'm like, oh my God. Okay. I'm actually excited about this because I do want to know who's here in LA that I'm already friends with, and have it not be as, you know, I don't know. I feel like my Find My Friends is like for my family. And I have friends like when we're all going to like say like a bachelorette party and we're all going to be in the same location, we do it, you know, temporarily. But I think for the rest of the time, I don't want to have it on. At first, I was confused about whether it allowed you to do it for like your close friends or if it was for everybody. But you know, people are like, no, you can do it for your close friends. I'm like, great. In that way, I'm kind of excited about it. Like this is one of those things where it's like I want to like socialize more with the people that I know and love, you know,
Mhm.
like I want to know what you're doing. Like, oh, like I just found, you know, found out that like, you know, a friend was in town. I was like, hey, you're in LA. And it's like, if it was easier to kind of know when like people are going to be here, and that they're like available, like that could be really cool. Like hopefully to create those like more spontaneous connections or like, you know, the idea of like, you know, kismet, you know,
Yeah.
serendipity. I think that more people want that. But definitely just the people that I like want, and not to be with like everybody. So I haven't turned it on, but I am curious about it. I just, you know, want to take the time to kind of like figure it out, and like go from there. So I think there's potential
Huh.
for it. But you know, we'll see going
Yeah.
forward, you know.
That's really nice. I really like your take, even though I do not share that feeling. I kind
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
don't want to do it, but
You
I think
also
that's
have a
nice.
lot more followers than I do. So you have a lot of people that like, you know, are I'm still, you know, a pretty small account. So that's kind of like in my mentality the way I see it. But to be fair, I would probably do it for Twitter as well, just because like I know that I have like Twitter mutuals. There's people that
Hmm.
I've met on there that I would want to know if I knew where they were and I knew that I was going there. But yeah, I am a super extroverted person who would love to meet like more people.
Yeah.
So maybe that's like the big
No, I
difference
think
as
that's
well.
maybe it is. Yeah, no, maybe it is. Yeah. I mean,
Hmm.
I like that. I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm more the type that if I'm going to go to another city,
Hmm.
I do reach out to people I know who live there, and I'll search in my Twitter feed, my LinkedIn feed, my whatever, like I'll search my social
Hmm.
feeds to see like am I forgetting anyone? So I actually do like think about that, and I will reach out to people. I hope they do the same for me if they're in my town,
Hmm.
but mostly I don't like that. I don't like location
Yeah.
sharing.
Yeah. No, yeah, because I
Yeah.
feel um maybe because I'm not, I don't plan ahead that much. I kind of just wanted to be like, hey, if it like
Hmm.
works, it works, you know? And then, you know, I've had where like people move and they don't update their location.
Mm.
And then you're just like, oh yeah, I'm not there anymore. And I'm like, oh damn, like I thought I'd be able to see you. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I do want to talk about quick, just to kind of reiterate a couple of safety and privacy implications
Yeah.
here. So it is indeed opt-in for the location sharing, and there are parental controls and teen safety measures built in. And then as far as that activity feed that I talked about, the expanded friends tab, you can also hide what you don't want to show. So users can mute activity, or you can choose to hide your likes, comments, or reposts from the friends tab. So you can customize that if if you want to. But let's also talk about some of the implications here. What does this mean for marketers or creators, right? I think one thing that's kind of interesting is that it does change how people can figure out how to tap into organic reach on social, right? Because a repost will act as a sort of mini promotion for your content.
Hmm.
So your content can reach followers of those who repost it, even if they don't follow you. So something to think about as you're creating for Instagram is think about the content you can create that's repostable, right? So you can do things like getting people to choose a side, tapping into a strong sense of emotion. I think this is where I think this is where tapping into how people self-identify, or like how they share their values, how they express themselves, and figure out how you can be a part of that. So, like I said, getting people to choose a side on something, like playing into some
Hmm.
kind of, maybe we could say lighthearted controversy, like
Mm.
like a sports game, like are you for this team or that team? You could think about tapping into
What are you talking
feelings,
about?
like
Go into, did
yeah,
Sydney Sweeney mean jeans or jeans?
yeah, totally. Get people to choose that side. Um, if you thought this, maybe this, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of opportunity for that kind of
Hmm.
stuff. And then I would also say think about what would get someone, like why would someone be proud to repost this publicly? And I think there's probably going to be similar intent as people who retweet things. Like, why do people retweet things? Usually it's some version of I wish I said that. Like I wish I came up with this, or I agree with this so strongly that I need to push it to everyone's feed. Or maybe it's a form of bookmarking. I know some people retweet to sort of bookmark things like on their page. Maybe that's the reason people might repost stuff. So I think that's interesting to think about.
Yeah, I love this because it's like I was already doing it like on my stories, right? Like
Hmm.
you could share on your stories, you know, content, and then obviously it went away after like 24 hours. So I like that this is a little more that it lasts longer, you know. I definitely see it as a, you know, Instagram trying to bring some of that magic from Twitter
Hmm.
and threads onto Instagram, because Instagram is still their biggest channel. I agree with Amanda. It's like, how can you create content that people want to share?
Hmm.
I like that it's a separate feed. So it's not like you're just getting bogged down by, you know, all this like uh, traffic that's like not yours. Like if you just want to
Hmm.
follow your friends traffic, like, you know, that'll be there, and this is a different one. But it does remind me of like the old days of like Instagram, right, where you could see what they were liking and who they were following, and then they got rid of that, remember?
Yeah.
So it's funny that they're kind of, you know, reverting back to that in a slightly different way, of course. But
Yeah.
I think, you know, it kind of goes back to like, I want to know what my friends are liking, what they're doing, what content they're listening to. So I think for me, that's the kind of thing that you should be thinking about. Like, why would people want to share this? Like, is this a product that they love? Like, and are we making it easy for them to share? Because sometimes a lot of the content that you're posting on there, like, you're just kind of you're just posting up a product feature, or like a quote or something that, like, it's like cool as like something that like I like, but I don't know that I would actually take the next step to like repost it. So
Sure.
yeah, it's a good time to start testing things out, like what you would do, or the types of things that people would engage with a little bit more than they're used to.
Yeah. And I think, one other thing I'll be very curious to see is the implications this could or could not have on algorithmic feeds versus following feeds, right? Because there was a recent article that we saw that was like that showed that Meta's data showed that only about 7% of Instagram activity was friend based. So what's
Mm,
interesting is that these changes, at least theoretically, make Instagram a lot more social and connected because you will literally see the things that your friends are organically,
hmm
purposefully reposting. You'll be seeing your friend's location, obviously if they choose to share it with you.
hmm
Right? These are things that, for better or for worse, are rooted in some kind of connection, right?
hmm
Like these are actions that individual users have to take or do. So I don't know. I mean, like, we'll see, right? But I think it's interesting to think about it as like, could this be a step towards Instagram being more social again
yeah,
and
I mean,
not just an entertainment platform? I
no,
don't know.
definitely. I mean, because think about it. I've heard from so many people that are like, I don't post on my timeline anymore. I just do stories. Right. And so most people are communicating in that way. Maybe, I've heard all sorts of reasons why, it's too commoditized, that your photos have to be too perfect, and people just don't feel comfortable posting as much as they used to, back in the day. Um, so this is a way for you to start sharing more about yourself and like content from you without the pressure of having to, make sure that your life is perfect and that you're, putting, creating nice, pretty pictures or videos of everything, right? I still don't think that like a lot of people are actually creating reels. I think that that still kind of remains a like brand and like creator type of content. So how are you kind of sharing the things that are of your interest for your friends to like still be involved in your life? So I think that that's a good way to kind of like, hopefully, I honestly, I hope it works, because I do want to see more content from my friends. Like, when I go onto Instagram these days, it's mostly from brands that I followed, like, way back when, news sources, or a bunch of like, suggested content, because my feed just doesn't, have content from like the people that I follow. And sure, I can go and try to follow more people, but just from the ones that I do follow, no one's really posting that much.
Mhm.
So if now we can have a new way for my friends to post about their lives, or like what they're, reading or doing or liking, then maybe I'll go back onto Instagram a little bit more.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, let's roll into some takeaways. All right,
Cool.
going back to our first topic on GPT-5.
Yeah. Yeah, so basically, as a startup, you need to, be real with like your users, like stop overhyping your product, especially if you're going to underdeliver. We've seen, a lot of those cases, right? Human AI, Cluely, now OpenAI. I would have expected a little bit more from OpenAI, just because it's a bigger company and like they have so many more eyeballs. But I think, any company, if you're gonna say that your product does something, your product better do it. I think there's less um, opportunity given from consumers for your product to mess up. And if you're going to lose them, like, you're going to have to work extra hard the next time to bring back those people. I think by taking people through the journey about like what you're actually building and where you're at right now is a good enough way to promote your product. Talk about the way that you're affecting your consumers' lives right now. How are you benefiting them? Are you saving them time? Are you saving them money? Like, talk to those real stories so that consumers can see themselves using your product just like your current consumers, and then use you for that reason. But just stop overhyping.
Yeah, for me, it is be careful that you're not pulling the rug from underneath your core users.
Mm,
Because there were so many people who counted on the previous models, who preferred the previous models, who suddenly were forced into GPT-5 and did not like it. I I can appreciate if they're taking the stance of like, hey, ethically, we think this is better. But I think it's okay, then take that stance, take it harder.
hmm
It's like these are like this is why we have to do this. This
hmm
is why you cannot access the old versions. Like I think there needs to be a lot more around the educational aspect of
Yeah.
it and why you're doing things, why you're doing things the way that you are, why people cannot do other things the way that they knew and loved. It's really worth taking that long look at it. There are so many decisions that go into how products evolve. Sometimes there's actual tech limitations. Sometimes it's ethical stuff or it's visionary stuff where they're making changes in service to this better vision or this greater vision that they have. So I can appreciate that there are going to be pain points in any product along that evolution and just be very thoughtful about it. Really be mindful of that customer experience. How can you take people along that journey with you?
Yeah. Something I'll add to that is, um, since it appears to be an actual problem of like people relying on AI as like a comfort tool and as like a friend, um, Sam Altman and OpenAI really need to get ahead of that, because they know, they see it. I mean, we're starting to see it. It's showing up on our timelines as people admit to that, on Reddit, saying that they miss their friend, they miss their partner. Um, so if they really are going to make that decision to go that way, they need to like bring up these examples of like what's actually happening to people. Is the psychosis being caused by AI an actual thing that we all need to like worry about as a society? Because I think that that's the only way that like you can help educate your users, but then also like parents and like family friends who are interested in helping the people that are going in that direction. And like the moment to do that now is before something worse happens.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, our next topic on the decline of Google search and organic traffic. My takeaway there is, really focus on do your audience research.
Yeah.
Really focus on where your audience is, where they're already paying attention, what they're doing online, and market where they already are and where you can influence them. Because, the old SEO playbook or the classic content marketing playbook of just trying to rank for keywords and hopefully you'll get the traffic, it's proving to be effective less and less and less. So
Yeah. And then my takeaway is yapping is a thing now. You need to be out there and really putting yourself as like the founder or you as like the company to really talk about the things that nobody else in your industry is talking about. There's such a huge opportunity right now to be creating that unique content, by figuring out like, what are the changes that are happening, what are the things that are affecting people, what can our product do that is solving the solution for people, and then also not even talking about your company itself, but just like the overarching trends that are happening, in order to create that thought leadership that people are looking for right now, including the AI companies that are looking for content for their AI summaries.
yeah. And then as far as the resurgence of physical media and the return to analog,
Yeah, I think this is a huge opportunity for people to be creating one-off experiences or swag or something like pieces, collectibles. People are really looking to buy things that like show that they like something, right? Like whether that's these movies that we're seeing, like Find the Resurgence, or like the books that are collectible items, the movie theater popcorn containers that are also coming out that are super popular, the zines that are like coming out. Like what can you do for like your company that like has either an experience that like people can come to and like be there for, or create like a physical thing that people can own, so that that reminds them of your company or like the industry or something. I don't know, just think about what's unique. People want human experiences right now, as we've talked about this entire episode, so like think about that.
yeah, I think the algorithmic fatigue is real.
Mhm.
People are craving some kind of real experience, so do that.
Yeah. Let's be real. Come on. Be human.
Yeah. And then finally on Instagram's new updates. Yeah, I mean, it's funny how it does kind of feel like perhaps Instagram is coming full circle. Like we're seeing more of the truly social behavior again. And by truly social, I mean the people that we're following, the people who follow us. This could be the opportunity to reconnect with friends or figure out to really see what the content that your friends are sharing, an opportunity for you to share what you really care about if you want to be reposting stuff.
Yeah. One thing that I just kind of thought of right now is I wonder if companies can kind of use this in a way, not just so the reposting, Amanda just talked about, make sure that the content that they want to share, the content that you're creating is shareable and like, grows your community or, has like inside jokes, that kind of stuff. But one thing here is I wonder the location thing, if you can make it temporary where it's like, I see a lot of people going to like marketing conferences. And like you just want to know which of your friends or connections are there. Like, is this an opportunity for like the hosts of the conference to, suggest people turn on their location services so that everybody can kind of be in like the same place and like create moments around the human experience in order for more of your people to like get to know the people that are there and like have those like human moments.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what people are looking for.
Yeah, I wanted to say this earlier, but I chickened out. But at SparkToro, we have our upcoming Spark Together conference. So this is going to be our
There you
2-day
go.
event in October in Seattle, where the format is it's a storytelling format. So we invite speakers to tell their hard-won business stories. So these are stories of failure and success. And we don't record it. We ask people to tell a story they've never told before and that they won't tell again. And a lot of this was really born from that need for connection. Like, we really want to foster networking and community within the SparkToro community. So Spark Together became the answer for that. The other part being, for the things like best practices, how-tos, case studies, we also believe like people need that and that's important, but people are searching for that online. They're going to YouTube. They're getting great YouTube content on how to do these things. I don't think that's why people will want to come to an event. You come to an event to experience real life interactions, and that is what Spark Together is all about. So if that sounds like your thing, hopefully you'll check out Spark Together in Seattle this fall.
Okay. Cool. I think that's everything. So you can follow me at Sonia Bashez on Twitter, Threads, LinkedIn, Facebook, and everything. And if you want to talk more about yapping as a service, you can look at my website at bengirth.co.
Yeah. So check out Sonia's Yes, her yapping as a service. As for me, Amanda, you can follow me at Amanda Nat on LinkedIn, Twitter, Threads, Instagram, and you can learn more about me at amandanat.com.
Cool. And then make sure to follow the podcast at Meme Team Pod on YouTube and then at Meme Team Podcast on Spotify. And please make sure to write reviews. It's been a while since we gotten one. Come on, guys. We know you're listening.
Yeah, please do. It really helps out indie podcasts like ours.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And with that, we'll see you next week.
See
Thanks,
ya.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.